this just in, former Proud Boys chairman Enrique Tarrio and 3 other members of the group the Proud Boys were found guilty Thursday of seditious conspiracy in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, according to the Washington Post. This comes after nearly 15 weeks of trial, where prosecutors allege that the Proud Boys in question saw themselves as Donald Trump's army, according to the report. So this is high-profile convictions of leaders of the Proud Boys organization, which is the right-wing group that has a history of clashing with Antifa in the streets of Portland and other places, and then was very active on the day on January 6th. They were also charged, some of them, of taking police gear, using it to smash windows, that kind of stuff. I think that's totally fair to go after them for all of that. I'm not sold on this whole seditious conspiracy aspect of it. So their defense is that they said this is Donald Trump's fault. He said these things, and because he stoked the fires of the crowd, and then there was this unplanned riot. People went in. That also comports with, that's my view of what happened as well, and isn't that also kind of the mainstream media's view that this was Donald Trump's fault? So charging them in this way makes it sound like the government is almost contradicting that narrative. They're saying, no, this was planned by these individuals, and they're using. I don't know. This worries me from a free assembly and free expression standpoint. Again, you can charge them for smashing stuff. Absolutely agree with that. But to say that they had this organized plan to overthrow or prevent the transfer of power, that kind of thing, is giving them a lot of credibility, and I think then ends up actually denying the culpability of Donald Trump, which in another sense, it was all the January 6th commission and all that testimony. That's all about the responsibility Trump bears, not these random crazy far-right activist people.
Well, I think 2 things can be true at the same time, especially in this case. You have people who were organized. They were obviously a small militia of crazies who were very intent on carrying out this idea of destruction in order to take back America or reverse the signs of an election that they didn't agree with. Those things are true. I also think that they fell on what I consider somewhat Nuremberg-style theory, that because they assumed that they were told to do certain things, not directed. Trump didn't call on Tarrio and his crew to do something specifically, right. But I think that because of the messaging that he had done across social media and various other channels about the election being stolen, about people needing to take up arms, a lot of the rhetoric that he gave emboldened these individuals who were already known for doing some pretty crazy things. And they essentially, their argument fell on, well, he told me to do it and we were following orders. That didn't hold up. Seditious conspiracy is extremely hard to prove, so I did find it interesting that they got charged on that and that it actually went through. But in addition to that, I think that it was deeper than what was publicly known. These people planned, they executed, they organized. This was not some ragtag team of folks that came together the night before and said, you know what, we're going to take the Capitol. That's not what happened. No, they were planning this for months.
They were planning a protest, which you're allowed to do. You are allowed to protest. 99% or more of the people there were exercising their First Amendment rights.
This is a group that was known for anti-Semitism, anti-blackness.
Well, yeah, but not anti-immigrant. That's not a crime. None of that.
None of that is. Creating violence and creating environments where violence can occur and stoking fear at the same time, that is. And this was a group that was absolutely fine with leaning in on domestic terrorism. And they ended up, I think, falling on their own sword. I think that this type of ruling sends shockwaves to other groups who are also alt-right, who are also people who are anti-democratic in nature, who are also people who are absolutely fine taking up arms against America when they feel as though their values and what they represent is leaving them steadily. It's going to make people, I think twice, because this group assumed that they would get off. You could not tell Tarrio that him essentially blaming his actions on President Trump wasn't going to relieve him of that charge.
They should think twice about smashing windows, and that goes for left-wing protesters and everyone else too. But I don't think
this was beyond smashing windows. You and I did not see the same January 6th video. Well, this wasn't just about smashing windows.
And feuding with police officers and trespassing. They shouldn't do any of that. They should be prosecuted like anyone else for all that stuff. But, and the other interesting wrinkle is that in the past, Tarrio Enriquez, the Proud Boys leader, was, in fact, a government informant 10 years ago. In a bunch of other cases, he helped the government prosecute people for drug crimes and some other stuff. So the question a lot of people have had, and like this is true of many militia groups.
Informants going rogue isn't necessarily new.
Well, there is a history of people in these groups cooperating with law enforcement.
And then turning on America.
Well, cooperating with, I mean, being goaded by law enforcement agents to take actions that are criminal in order to arrest a wider swath of people. That very much happened in the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping thing. The organizer, the militia guy who's organizing that plot, was being paid by the FBI to do so because they're going to then arrest everyone involved in it rather than that's how they build a case. I mean, this entrapment of Muslim people, this has happened a lot. So this is going to make people wonder, you know, how to the extent that was, and people have made this argument. I haven't seen any evidence of it, but how, you know, were there law enforcement people embedded in the kinds of activity going on January 6th, and whether, you know, whether they was actually agents of our own government, you know, organizing that kind of behavior in order to eventually arrest those people as they've done in this other context.
We know that there were law enforcement officials engaged in cheering this group on. Many of them stood out there and did it. We know that there were law enforcement
I mean, there were
groups.
cops there.
There were law enforcement groups
there were cops
involved
from all over
in
the country,
assisting many of those who were, you know, January 6th and Donald Trump single pants into getting into areas that are typically closed off. We know that that happened. Was it coordinated to the extent of somebody was an informant? That has yet to be revealed. I think that that's more in line with conspiracy theory at this point than anything else. What we do know is that these individuals are now being held accountable for the exact crimes that they committed. And quite frankly, I think that that is proof positive that democracy works, that our justice system works. And at the end of the day, if you react in this way, if you try to destroy our democracy in this way, there are repercussions for that.
Yeah, I was there covering it. What I saw, what it looked like to me was a protest that spontaneously became a riot. The protest part of it, I think, was was organized. The part where they break down the doors and the windows and they go in and they start defacing the Capitol, that part did not seem to me to be coordinated or organized or planned. You know, the government is trying to prove that it was. I'm not persuaded that it was. That doesn't make it less bad. It's still bad, and I think it's perfectly fine, as I've said a million times, to charge reasonably with trespassing, fighting with the law enforcement agents that were on that were there. All of that is absolutely something that should be prosecuted. You don't have the right to do that. You have the right to protest. They didn't have the right to go in the Capitol. That is fine by me. But I don't know, seditious conspiracy. I'd worry they'll chill people's. I mean, like, you're right. In the future, activists might not want to do protests at all. And I would just say the same thing about left-wing people or Black Lives Matter activists. I don't think it's about activists not wanting to protest. I think it's about quelling people who are literally scaling the walls of the Capitol, being fine with taking the Confederate flag and using the Confederate flag to replace the American flag, using said flag as spears on officers, snatching things from them, and basically being absolutely fine, creating all levels of chaos, mayhem, up to and including potential murders of sitting elected officials. No, that's what this was about. Like, it's one thing to, and I don't agree with vandalism of any means either, but that's not what happened here. And we have to be very real about what did actually happen here and why this was amplified in the way that it was. They were never going to, if it was a plot to stop the transfer of power, overthrow, like it was never going to succeed. No, but people could have died. No, I'm not saying that the plan and the plot wasn't ignorant in its mission nor in its actual application. However, just because it didn't work doesn't mean that they don't deserve to have a certain level of repercussion. The argument isn't that it worked. Clearly it didn't work. It didn't stand a chance of working. All right. Well, we had a debate on that. You can decide for yourselves what you think. More Rising right after this.